Welcome to another edition of After Hours with Defo and Lubie here on the Believe Podcast Networks. I'm Jeff DeForest along with one Mike Lubitz. We had a lengthy discussion on our Ion Channel show and featured many people weighing in as to who reigns supreme in the NBA East, a wide open competition where our hometown team, the Miami Heat, currently in first place, although lost a real tough one last night in Milwaukee. And we welcome to the show one of our favorite people to discuss basketball with, or anything for that matter, the original coach of the expansion Miami Heat, and now a brilliant part of the Heat broadcast team. We welcome to the show our good friend, and we call him Coach. Coach Ron Rothstein joins us here on the show. Of course, you remember him with the Bad Boy Pistons as well. He was the guy that taught Bill Laimbeer how to body slam Larry Bird. I mean, just a fantastic influence on the NBA. Great guy. Ron Rothstein joins us here, original coach of the Miami Heat. Ron, I saw a headline. I didn't get a chance to watch a game last night, Miami Heat, and we're trying to figure out who's reigning supreme in the Eastern Conference. And I saw a headline this morning as I was looking up the result, and it said, defense stymies Heat in late going as Bucks pull out narrow victory. And I thought, okay, well, this might have been one of those 74-71 games from the past Heat-Knicks series that we were familiar with. And then I see the finals like 120-119. And I couldn't help but think, I mean, how has defense changed to the point where you're being applauded for your defense in a game where you gave up a $119 in regulation?
Well, it was the last 2 minutes. We had I think we had a 4-point lead. Actually, the last minute. We had a 4-point lead, if I remember correctly, under a minute to go. And we turned it over. And Middleton came down in transition, pulled up and made it 3, made it 1. And then went down the other end, and they had a foul to give. And, or maybe we just called the timeout and we advanced the ball into the front court, and we failed to inbound the ball cleanly, and they tied us up, won the jump ball, went down and scored the winning basket. We didn't have any timeouts left because when we first tried to inbound the ball, we couldn't get it in. We had to call another timeout. That was our last timeout. So after they scored, we didn't have any timeouts left. So it came down to their defense stepping up, our offense lacking execution in 2 key possessions down the stretch. That's what they meant by defense.
That was interesting, too. I guess they also talked about Wesley Matthews, who took over trying to stop Tyler Hero. And even though Hero had 30 points in the game, he still, was credited, Matthews, with kind of cooling him off there in the end. You mentioned inbounding the ball. Is that the longest 5 seconds in the history of time when the refs, in certain situations, it must have driven you crazy as a coach when you're screaming, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. And, you could count like 10 Mississippis and the guy still hasn't thrown the ball in. And then they call a timeout and they, try to do it again.
Well, most of the time, officials don't want to make that 5-second call at the end of the game. They really don't. But I've seen quick 5-second calls also, which is just as frustrating. But the rule actually says, and I know of, unless it's been changed, when the referee counts to 4, when he hits, if he counts 4, now you see them moving their arm, and they go 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. 2004, and then you call timeout, they are not supposed to award you that timeout.
Oh, really?
But that's the way the rule was originally written. Now, whether that rule has been changed or not, I don't know. I don't think so.
Wow.
But human nature comes into play.
Yeah.
The guy hasn't hit 5, and he's at 4, and he may think it's simultaneous, the timeout and the 4 count. So then he's going to give it to you. So, listen, you need to do a better job executing fundamentals, inbounding ball late game. And you know what? I'm not saying it was a good thing that happened to us. That was a very hard loss to stomach. We had played well enough to win on their court. We scored 119 points. You should win the game. However, you can learn from this. Guys aren't stubborn, and they open up their minds. They can understand when they go through the film, they will see the mistakes and correct them. Better now than in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a playoff, series. No matter who you face, that figures to be wide open and very challenging for all the teams that are involved. Because it's funny because for the last several years, everybody was under the impression, and maybe it was true. I don't know how you feel about it, Coach Rothstein, but that the West was the heavyweight, and the East was going to be hard pressed to do anything once they got around to the final round, and it just wasn't quite as good. But wow, it looks like the weight has shifted. Is that your thought also? Because you could look at 5 or 6 teams in the East and find difficulty separating them in terms of their potential to win it all.
Well, if you look in the West, I did this the other day. In both the East and the West, there were 6 teams, 1 through 6, that have at least 36 or more wins.
Wow.
So there's 11 teams that are bunched between 41 and 36 wins, and then there's Phoenix. Actually, I'm sorry, Golden State I think had 42 or 43, and then Phoenix had 49. But they'll come back to the pack a little bit, probably with Chris Paul being out. But if everybody's healthy going into the playoffs, and you got to look at Phoenix, had been there last year, lost in the finals, but having a great year, and a lot of times that loss in the finals, I've said this, and I think I'm not making this up, and it's not something that I've noticed only. I mean, a lot of people know this. A lot of times, many, many times, you have to lose in the finals before you win. And then you are fueled with that loss, and you learn your lessons. And Phoenix is on track to do that. But health is such a big thing. Who knows who's going to be really healthy come playoff time? Because that's a huge factor.
Ron Rothstein with us here on After Hours with Defo and Lubie. It's interesting, too. I mean, the situation in last night's game, the failure to execute there in the end game by the Miami Heat on what normally would be somewhat of a routine play to go ahead and be able to perform. There's been some talk, and we had a conversation with one of our analysts about it, and he was saying that the Heat aren't necessarily diverse enough in the way that they close out games, that almost, many of the other contenders have a one guy that's a definitive go-to guy, but that may not be beneficial for the Heat if they have an over-reliance on Jimmy Butler in that spot. Is that something that you see? Do the Heat need to kind of address how they, have, the ability to close out or clinch games in those final couple of possessions that are so important?
Well, I think it's easy from afar to make statements like that. But when you're with the team and when you're with your players and with no one knows a team better than its coach. I don't care what anybody says. Okay? And no one understands the temperature of a team and the inner workings of a team and the personality of the team, personality of its players. So, therefore, I dismiss a lot of that stuff. You have to go to what you know works for you. And a lot of times there are numbers to back it up, and there are other times those numbers are sort of plastic because you don't take into account certain situations, certain developments. And one of the things you got to look at is you got to look at end of game situations. Last night was not a good one for us, but there have been plenty end of game situations. And you know what happens? Guys make plays at end of games and they wind up winning. Your best guy makes that play. No one says anything.
Yeah.
And if he fails, you got to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How many games is Eric supposed to win?
Yeah, a lot. A lot.
Give me a break.
He's doing okay
Give me a
with it,
break.
yes. We should have told that guy he was a clown. That's for sure.
Listen, hey, everybody's got something. You put somebody on and you ask them the question, I'm sure they're going to answer it. I'm not sure they know what they're talking about.
No, it sounded good. I mean, it really did. He had us convinced. That's for sure. That's why I wanted to get your opinion on that.
We're talking with Bally Sports, Florida, Miami Heat analyst, longtime NBA coach, one and only coach Ron Rothstein. When it comes to the Heat, what's interesting to me is they sit there still number one in the Eastern Conference, yet their top four guys have only played like 10 or is it 15 games together? I don't even want to know. I don't even know how much literally Lowry, Hero, Bam, and Butler have played together. That's what's, to me, the most phenomenal about this team. You talk about injuries, whereas they were hurt last year a lot of the season. They're finally getting healthy. If this team is the number one seed now, just think when those four get together and Oladipo gets on the floor. What are your thoughts on the fact that they've been this successful even in spite of all their health issues?
Well, I think it's very unusual. Yeah. It's a tribute to the organization from Pat on down, scouting department, personnel people, coaching staff, players, everybody. We have a group of young guys, G League graduates, that have contributed hugely to our success this year, more so than any other team in the league. And the player development and the belief in these guys is through the roof. And, you don't know at this stage of the season, late stage of the season, if you get all these other guys back, how are all the pieces going to fit together? There's not a lot of time for that to mesh. Sometimes you're better off without. Usually no. But that's not an absolute. You never know. It could be very interesting. We shall see. Usually talent wins out. But it takes time for people to get on the same page. But those are veteran guys, so, I could be wrong in that regard.
Interesting dynamics that have changed in the NBA since the All-Star game and the trade deadline. By the way, would you ever consider, Coach Rothstein, with your mastery of defense and your reputation for being one of the great defensive minds among coaches in the NBA, would you ever have used the All-Star game video in any way to try and influence players and a way to play defense? What was that exactly? Was that even under the banner of total pressure?
Here's what I would do. I would put the film on and somehow have my video guy have the film explode and blow up as we started to show it.
It wasn't always that bad, was it, in All-Star games? That was, what
no,
was the point?
Listen, I don't know. I don't know when they changed people, but I remember this. First All-Star game I coached in was 2004. I was an assistant, my 1 year coaching in Indiana, assistant to Rick Carlisle. And we had the best record in the league that year. And Rick was chosen as All-Star coach. So Mike Brown and I and Dan Burke was assistant in Philadelphia. Now, we were the staff. We went to the All-Star game with him. And the game starts, great players are out there. And there's 9 guys just trotting around. And they're going through the motions. And then there was Kobe.
Huh.
And I'm watching, I'm looking, and I go, holy mackerel. I turned to Rick, and I said, Rick, what's with Kobe? He said, oh, that's him. He only knows one way.
Yeah.
But the other 9 were like on vacation. Kobe just wanted to win. So I would say somewhere around 2000 or whatever. I think even in the 90s, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it changed in the 90s. I do know in the 80s they went after each other. They didn't want to lose.
Right.
Things have changed so dramatically in the world. Why should these guys be in the
Yeah.
I think we played more intense defense when I was in a recreational league at the David Posnack Jewish Center of guys 60 and over. And most of us couldn't bend down to tie our shoes. So, it was prohibitive that you would expend any energy whatsoever at the defensive end when you could easily just as well be shooting with that same burst of energy. Ron Rothstein, our guest here on After Hours, always fascinating. We mentioned the dynamic of change in the Eastern Conference. The big blockbuster deal, I guess, was Harden going to Philadelphia and a sulking Ben Simmons going potentially to be a contributor with the Brooklyn Nets, although we don't know at what level or when that's going to take place. But Harden, he seems to be reinvigorated. What's your feeling about James Harden? Because we saw sort of a different side of him when he first went to the Nets, and all of a sudden he was as much a facilitator and a distributor in some ways as he was a brilliant scorer throughout his career.
I think James Harden just recognized that he did not feel he could win a championship in that environment in Brooklyn and wanted out. He wants to win a championship. So he basically forced the trade Philadelphia. When I say forced to trade, you got a guy that's eating up that much of your cap, and you're counting on him to help you win a championship. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't think he's. Me personally, I don't know this for a fact, but he just said, the Kyrie thing. He said, no, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to play with you. It was going to be the three of us, and you let me down. That's what my reading of the thing. So I'm getting at it. Now, when James Harden is motivated, which he seems to be reinvigorated in Philadelphia, and he's playing with, arguably the best center in the game, and who seems to be really motivated, even this year, even more so since Harden came on board, they're a threat. They are here, and what's evolved in their first 3 or 4 games together is the emergence of Tyrese Maxey as their third scorer. Not even Tobias Harris, but the young kid Maxey, where everybody said he's got a chance to be a real special player. You play with 2 great players, you're going to get a lot of open looks. You're going to get a lot of opportunities, but so much of the defense is concentrated on those other 2. So it's Philly's dangerous team right now.
Yeah, I thought that was going to make a big difference, and it seems to be working very well. And a quick, smooth transition, seamless by James Harden to join forces with Embiid and maybe even, as you said, Coach, make other players level rise considerably as well. Always a pleasure, Coach. A wild one last night with Milwaukee. The Heat playing great basketball, showing a lot of depth and all kinds of class in leading the Eastern Conference. So we wish you the best the rest of the way. Always enjoy your commentary on TV, and thanks so much for joining us here on After Hours.
Always great to talk to you guys. Be well, stay safe, and talk to you down the road, I'm sure.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks so much. That's Ron Rothstein, one of our favorites here. He gets into it, man. It's really great. And
his stuff.
Was an original coach of the Miami Heat. Suffered through, some really, really tough years. As he said, he had a full head of hair back then. And, it's not necessarily a guarantee if you inherit the first head coaching job of your career after a brilliant run there. He was the man responsible for that Detroit Pistons defense.
Yes.
Under Chuck Daly, and a great run by the bad boy Pistons, and well respected when he became the coach of the Heat, but tagged with a real I don't want to say NBA bag ladies, but it wasn't like it was the greatest roster that they handed the Miami Heat to work with in that first year, and they lose their first 17 games.
Yeah.
But they were lovable losers, man. We loved them here in town, and to their credit, the Heat organization, they bring in Pat Riley. And they've really never wavered. They rarely have 2 seasons in a row where they're not some kind of a factor in the equation, at least for the postseason. And they've done very well in, just marketing themselves here in the South Florida area where, as we said, this is the city of false hope and broken dreams. And usually the fans don't buy into anything, but they do have a lot of respect and faith in that Heat organization. And Ron Rothstein was obviously a big part of that history as well as their original coach and now part of the broadcast team. We thank him for joining us here
Thanks,
on
Coach.
After Hours. Lubie, a lot of fun, man. You're
Yes,
getting
sir.
into some basketball dissection here
Let's do
on
it.
the Believe Podcast Network. And, so every now and then we'll go to the chalkboard there and give you what we have. And we appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks so much for listening on Believe Podcasts. Always great to be with these people as well. I'm Jeff DeForest from Mike Lubie Lubitz and After Hours with Defo and Lubie. We leave you with the thought that you always have to have in mind, people, you just gotta believe. Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752. Why go up against insurance companies alone when you can have Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa on your side?